Today we're talking about the real reason why you so often have inconsistent off-center hits. And with that, I'd like to send my regards to dear Ewald, because Ewald came to me this week with exactly this problem. Who am I? My name is Philip Glimberg and I am a PGA teaching professional. I've been teaching golf for 16 years and I do so quite regularly. Today it's all about why so many golfers have off-center inconsistent hits. And in my opinion, the main reasons for this include, among others, early extension. That is, the uncontrolled pushing forward of the pelvis during the downswing, often due to a poor backswing. And that's exactly what today's topic is about. I want to teach you how to make a proper backswing so that you no longer need early extension during your downswing. However, many people also get early extension because they consciously try, as right-handed golfers, to rotate their right back foot onto the toe, which in general I don't think is good if it happens too early in the swing. Because if this happens too early in the swing, look what happens. Your hips push toward the ball. And what happens as a result? Exactly, you run out of space and have to push your hands out. Sockets can be the result. Or also extreme hooks, for example. Balls that curve sharply to the left, just like push slices. Balls that start to the right and drift further right. All of this can be avoided relatively simply by making sure the backswing is correct on one hand, and by remembering to use the right leg, the right foot, correctly. Or rather, to let it work properly. So we're starting here on a par 4. I have a 4-iron in my hand, 374 meters to go, and I'd like to play a little draw. Yes, that's the little draw. However, the ball wasn't hit perfectly. I caught it slightly on the toe and it will probably leave more work left than I would have liked.
Take me back to the start, before the quiet and the scars, when the world felt small in your head.
Now I am taking my shot number 2 on this challenging par 4 hole. There are only 190 meters left. Because of my slightly botched tee shot, I now have a 6-iron in my hand. And I'll try to just place the ball in front of the green, a little to the right of the green. Let's see if I can pull it off. That one was also hit a bit on the top of the club, but it should be a little to the right of the green here, which is perfectly fine. The question to answer is how the swing path influences early extension. And the answer is very, very simple. If your left arm is coming too much from the outside, too far forward toward the ball, then you have to do something to get the club back on plane, to bring it onto the correct plane. And most of the time you do this. Everything happens subconsciously, intuitively, by pushing your hips forward, because that allows you to shallow out your club. You only have one problem. You run out of space here. Your hands move outward, and that's why you'll hit the ball inconsistently. Instead, I want to ask you to do one thing. As I often say in many videos, always remember that when you take the club back, you bring your left arm, if this were 0 degrees, to 30 degrees. This is extremely important, because from this position, you'll be able to swing neutrally to the ball or slightly from the inside without having to compensate for anything. You don't need any early extension, you don't have to make any compensatory movements. Starting from this position, your club will automatically find its way to the ball. And your swing path will be neutral. By the way, my last video was about making a short backswing and hitting the ball far. And that's exactly what it was about. Finding the position in the backswing, placing the left arm 30 degrees inward when the left arm is parallel to the ground, by the way. And starting from this position, as already mentioned, you're able to swing neutrally to the ball without having to compensate for anything, without needing any early extension. To shallow the club. So shot number 3, you need to play it safe. I have a lob wedge in my hand and I'm going to land the ball somewhere at the front of the green so that it can then roll out towards the flag. Of course, when the ball is played out of the rough, it always has a little less spin. That means even with the lob wedge, where I normally get a lot of spin on the ball will roll out. With shots like these, especially in the short game, it's always really important to give yourself a long backswing, so that you don't start to get tense during the follow-through. The main mistake most golfers make in the short game is definitely taking too short of a backswing. And then you start to hit at the ball with your hands, which usually causes the contact to suffer. That means my task is to make a relatively long and relaxed backswing. The ball landed a little short, but I still have a chance for par. To be honest, I could have even taken the backswing a bit further because I noticed my hands tightened up a little and the club face was slightly open. It twisted to the right when it made contact with the ball. For ball position in such situations, I always recommend playing the ball a little to the right. Because if the ball is to the right, your sternum is usually positioned clearly to the left of the ball, which allows you to hit the ball first and then the ground. Uphill putt for par. However, there is a 3 to 4% slope, which is quite a lot, especially when you really want to make the putt. So I aim the ball to the right, 3 fingers to the right of the center of the hole, and I'll try to get the speed right. Par putt uphill. Yeah, that one is also too short. However, to be honest, I didn't really feel like I deserved a par on this hole. There were just too many sloppy shots, off-center, inconsistent hits. And the reason was, and that's why today's video fits so well, that my right side, my right leg, my right heel didn't work properly. And hopefully I can do that much better on the next hole. Par 4, 316 meters. But now my task is to move my right leg, my right foot better, to get them working. What do I mean by better? I'm going to try to consciously keep my right heel down a little longer to roll over the inside edge of my right foot, because that way I create a lot of space here for my hands, which will hopefully make my point of contact more consistent. All right, let's get started here on the par 4 with the driver. And I can feel my right heel staying on the ground. A little draw along the left side, it's curving left, but the contact was much better. And that's exactly what it's about. I want to ask you, if you want to bring more consistency into your game, then try to feel how your right foot works in this position. How it works here. How your right heel stays down as long as possible. Because almost all tour players who perform really, really well have one thing in common. Maintaining a fully straightened right leg and a right heel that remains firmly planted on the turf for a relatively long time. It is quite rare to see professional tour players push their hips forward and prematurely lift their trailing right heel. Few tour players move their right knee toward, yes, you could say, the ball. Most good players actually try to get their right knee to feel like it's coming behind the left knee, to keep the right leg as straight as possible, and to roll the right foot over the inside edge. Why is this so important? Because the straightened right leg is also responsible for keeping your pelvis well positioned. What if your right leg bends too early? And if you perhaps had the goal of turning your right foot onto its toe, then yes, something will happen. Your pelvis, go back, the lower center of gravity, the middle of your pelvis, the belt buckle, suddenly lands to the right of the ball. And your tilts, the angles of your upper body to your lower body, simply no longer match up. That's not a good follow-through. On the contrary, I would rather see you in this position. So please make sure to pay attention to this in the future if you have this problem. With inconsistent hits, make sure that your right foot works correctly in the future. That your heel stays down and that your foot rolls over the inside edge.
Take me back to the start, before the quiet and the scars, when the world felt small and your hands felt warm. Take me back to the start.
Okay, if we're being really strict, you could say the ball position could be a little better, but that's nitpicking at a very, very high level because the ball landed here in the semi-rough. Nevertheless, I only have 30 meters left to the green and I have a lob wedge in my hand. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm now trying again to work with a wide arc. I'm really trying to play the ball softly. High and soft so that it lands on the green and stays on the green. The second point, which is extremely important, as already mentioned, is my right heel. Even in the short game, I absolutely avoid moving my knee toward the ball. Because that's the main reason why sockets keep happening, shanks occur, and balls are hit on the inside. Shout out to Sebastian Georg Herald. There are many people who have this problem. Because of the right knee, which pushes toward the ball, instead, I really want to try to feel my right heel here. To feel that my right heel really maintains contact with the ground. All right, let's go. Second shot on the par 4. Yes, that was well played, but just too long. And simply not, I'll call it, a real birdie chance. Unfortunately, I really would have loved to make a birdie. Shout out to Ramy, who would also call this a birdie chance. Unfortunately, I'm a bit too realistic and would rather call it a par chance. Let's put it that way. Now, I'm deliberately leaving the flag in the hole since the putt is downhill. And the flag could only save me if I were being too aggressive. The putt will break from right to left. I feel it's about 2 to 3%. And the most important thing in this case, as with almost all putts to be honest, is distance control. Yes, the distance should be right. What's really important is that when you're playing a putt like this, you shouldn't factor in too much what's in front of the ball, whether you're putting from the fringe or from the fairway. Because even the putter has a certain loft, usually between 2 and 4 degrees. That means that when you play the ball with the putter, it will actually fly a bit. And it won't be as affected by the higher grass as most people think. So this is a short putt for par, and I would definitely like to take that par here. As always, I clean my ball, I line up my ball as usual, even if the putts are relatively short, but they still have to go in the hole. And as always, I would like to sincerely thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you'll be notified when the next video is online. With that, I wish you a wonderful evening and a great game.